Hey everybody, how you doing? It's been a while since I posted an update and I figured it was just about time. Um, Evening, out of camp. It's 5:30, but you look outside and it looks more like 9 o'clock. And my body still hasn't caught up with the time change, so it feels more like 9 o'clock. Anyway, I thought I would fill you in on, what's been going on with me and the travels. And oh, there's a little cutie over my shoulder there. Um, So I've been on the road for a little over 3 weeks now, and moving day is coming up again the day after tomorrow. So I've got to pack up, camp here. I mean, the trailer, other than putting things away inside and securing everything so that it doesn't move while I'm going down the road, is easy. All of the work, the main work, is outside, raising the stabilizer jacks. Unhooking from power and water, taking down the gazelle gazebo, and my camp kitchen outside. That's the biggest part of the work. So I plan to spend all day doing that tomorrow. Anyway, like it's been long enough. I probably shouldn't wait so long between updates because so many things have happened that I feel like the video would be way too long. Um, Travel so far has gone well. I did run into an issue where, for some reason, I don't know if they've always been low or if they just lost air pressure while the R pod was sitting in my yard between early August and October when I left. And for whatever dumb reason, I didn't take the time to take it somewhere and check the air pressure. Um, so I realized after a couple of days of traveling that the trailer wasn't handling right. Like there was a little bit of wonkiness, a little bit of sway in the back end, and I knew that it had nothing to do with weight or weight distribution because I was really careful in loading the trailer, the truck, the cab of the truck, the bed of the truck. So I was relatively sure it wasn't that. And it just felt like, you know, if I got up near 55, 58 miles an hour, it wasn't a lot of sway. It wasn't a dangerous amount of sway, just enough so that I could feel it, and it made me uncomfortable. And I looked in my side mirror, and especially the tire on the driver's side on the trailer looked a little bit low to me, and I thought, you know what? I'm gonna stop somewhere and have the air pressure checked. Um, and I hadn't set up the TPMS yet, the tire pressure monitor system, because I had imagined in my own mind that it was way more complicated than it was. Actually, it was pretty much plug and play because the trailer is pre-wired with TPMS. All I had to do was get the display going, put in the right numbers. And so once I did that, before I even got to a garage, it told me that my driver's side tire was definitely low. It was low by about 8 pounds, and that's quite a bit. And the passenger side was low as well. In addition to that, I don't know if I talked about this in other videos or not, but since the day I picked up the RV in Trenton, Ohio, I have always felt that the weight distribution hitch was mounted incorrectly by the dealership. And I knew as soon as I pulled into a Walmart parking lot that night and took a step back from it by about 50 feet and took a picture, the trailer was definitely riding nose high, right? So instead of being level like this when it's being towed, the trailer was actually a little bit like this. And that should never be. If anything, if you can't get it level, then the nose of your trailer should tip just a little bit nose down, because this, right, is asking for sway. That's very problematic. And I even posted in a forum that I belong to on Facebook, and pictures and stuff like that as I took them. And a couple of people who've been RVing for a really long time would be like, um, you're aware that your trailer is nose high, right? Are you having problems with sway or you know, handling? And I was like, well, maybe the picture just looks makes it look bad. But the more pictures I took and looked at them, no, it was riding nose high. Anyway, I'll get back to that in a minute, but I do want to tell you, I have driven through some beautiful country. As you know, I spent the first 8 days in Rhode Island, and it was nice to have access to the beach and be able to go to the beach whenever I wanted to. And I did go several times, not only to Galilee, but to other area beaches. And I love Rhode Island. I had a surprise visit from one of my younger brothers. He lives about 45 minutes from where I was camped in Rhode Island, and he came. We went out to lunch together and got caught up, and so that was really nice. And then moving day came, and I started heading toward my next destination, which I'm still at, Trout Pond State Park in Delaware. And it was just a really, really nice drive, other than my concerns about the way the trailer was handling. And I knew I was going to have to address this sooner rather than later because it was making me nervous, and I just didn't feel comfortable with the trailer's handling. Um, I drove through one little town, and I cannot for the life of me remember the name of it, but it was like, I passed through Pennsylvania just a little bit, just how the roads work and everything. And I drove through this town that was incredible. Obviously, a really old town. All of the buildings on the main street were all made out of stone. The like very, very old stone. This was not modern work. The architecture, probably late 1800s or something like that. The post office, the library, any other municipal buildings were all made out of stone. The firehouse made out of stone. It was just incredibly beautiful. And I slowed right down to probably 25 miles an hour and just took it all in. And then even when I made a turn and started going through some of the residential areas of this little town, even the homes were built like that. They were all flagstone or stone, like river stone, field stone, just incredibly beautiful. And some of them were huge. They were like these huge mansions. I mean, I would love to go back there sometime, and be able to park somewhere and just walk around and take pictures of all those buildings. That was amazing. And then I had one really scary day, because I learned Google is not always my friend, and she doesn't always know what the hell she's talking about. Bella, could you not whine, please? Um, and so I'm following her directions, and she routes me. Now I have my settings to avoid ferries and tunnels and tolls. So she puts me on somewhat unusual routes sometime. I'm driving down this one road. Now the clearance on my camper is 10 feet 6 inches, and I know this. I know what my clearance is. And all of a sudden I'm driving down this secondary road, and I see a sign that says clearance 9.4. And I was like, what? 9.4. Yeah, it's like over a foot too short for the trailer to make it under. And I'm looking around, and it's all woods and like wetland areas. There's no place to turn around. And I'm like, oh my God, what the hell am I going to do? And then finally I drove a little further, and I realized that the low clearance overpass was down a gravel road. I was sweating it. I was really sweating it because I was like, there is no place for me to back up this trailer. And at that point, other than backing it into my own yard, I still had not. Bella, stop. Do you hear her whining back there? She's mad because I'm talking to someone, not her. Anyway, that turned out to be nothing, and I was like, oh my gosh. The name of the road was something or other Parkway, and I was talking to another RVer, via Facebook Messenger, had my phone. I always drive safe. My phone is never in my hand. It's always in its holder. And so Facebook Messenger works flawlessly. And he was like, "What was the name of the road?" And I said, "Something or other Parkway." And he said, "If you're in New Jersey or Lower Pennsylvania, don't ever get on a parkway with the rig." He said, "Because I have run it." He has a great big Class A. I think it's like 40 feet long. He said, "I've gotten into more trouble on parkways. They're infamous for, low clearances." And I was like, okay, good to know. Then so then I'm following Google Maps, and everything's going fine, and okay, take a right here onto, forget what the name of the road was, doesn't really matter anymore. And I drive maybe a half mile on this road, and there is a gate, but the gate has swung open, and mounted on one of the posts on the side, it says road closed. I was like, what? Wait, what? Road closed? Road's not closed. I'm driving on the road. What are you talking about? So I came to a full stop. I looked behind me. There's nothing behind me. I'm like, nobody else is. Bella, quiet. Nobody else is using this road. Why is that? And I thought, if I keep driving, like, does it suddenly, just drop off in like one of those old Looney Tune cartoons with Wile E. Coyote, or what? And again, I'm in a position like where there's no place to back up and turn around. So I'm like, all right, I'm just going to keep driving forward. And I did. And then finally, after about 2 miles, I see a car coming in the oncoming lane. And I'm like, they came from somewhere, right? There's got to be road ahead because they came from somewhere. Anyway, then it dawned on me, because I passed like these little side roads. I realized later I was actually in a state forest. And so there were all these little side roads. And I'm like, but what if they came from one of those little side roads and it really does just suddenly go nowhere? Fortunately, that didn't happen. So that was kind of, an afternoon of white knuckle driving between the low clearance and the road closed. No, it's not, because here I am. Anyway, finally got back onto, a state highway. I was so relieved to see cars traveling in both directions again. And I made it to a sleepy little town somewhere in New Jersey. And I pulled into a gas station. And it was the first gas station I had come to in these little towns that was actually had enough room to accommodate, the truck and the trailer, because when they're hitched together, I'm 45 feet long. So I can't pull into these little mom and pop places, but this was a little mom and pop kind of garage. It just happened to have a large parking area, around the gas pumps. So I pulled in there. There was a guy who I immediately identified as the owner, working on an old Harley, and there's another old guy talking to him. And I said, they had an air machine, and I said, "Can I get change for the air machine? Because I don't have any quarters." And he said, "How about we just give you some air?" And I was like, "That would be great, thank you." And I said, "I have another problem, but you probably can't help with that." And as he's walking toward my rig, he goes, "I see what your other problem is, and you're not driving out of here like that. How many miles have you put on like that?" And I said, "You mean with the nose high?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, probably 1,700. He's like, "Yeah, well, you've done your last mile like that." So anyway, put the air in. He wanted me to unhook the weight distribution hitch, because his young assistant, who was he was just apprenticing, he'd never dealt with sway bars and stuff like that before. And the older mechanic was like, those things can be dangerous if you don't know what you're doing, so I'd rather you do that yourself. Do you usually unhitch this by yourself? I'm like, well, I'm all there is, so yes, I do. And so anyway, we got air in the tires, did that first, and then he looked at the hitch. He said, "Did you put that together yourself?" And I said, "I am not responsible for that. That was put together at the dealership." He said, "You realize it's upside down, right?" Stop it. "You realize it's upside down." And I'm like, I thought so. He said, you see that brace there? That actually belongs on the bottom. It provides support so that the hitch cannot collapse on itself. I don't know what Bella's problem is. She's really jealous right now. Anyway, he said, you tell Carlos where you want it, right? Where you want it positioned. So I picked how much I wanted it lowered. And he said, I won't tighten anything until you hook it back up when we take a look at it. And, you know, I picked how I wanted it reassembled. We hitched it back up, and like this young guy and the owner and a couple of his older friends were there, and they were like, oh my God, that's so much better. And, you know, the young guy said, go ahead and tighten it up. And I was like, yeah, yep, we're good. And anyway, got that all straightened out. So then I went in a truck and I looked at the TPMS to make sure that the tires were good. Poor Carlos. I felt so bad for him. He obviously didn't realize how important tire pressure is on a trailer with regard to handling. And 1 minute. Stop. I shouldn't do this because you're behaving badly, so I feel like I'm rewarding you for bad behavior, but I'm going to give you a treat just to shut you up, okay? There you go. Casper, here you go. You don't really need one, but because you always a good boy, right? Are you always a good boy? Okay, sorry for the interruption. Hopefully she'll be quiet for a few minutes. Got back in the truck and I looked at the TPMS and turned it on so it would monitor both the trailer tires. The correct PSI on those trailer tires is 65 pounds cold. And I was there long enough that the tires were cold. The TPMS told me that was their cold rating. Carlos had put 101 pounds of air in the passenger side, and in the driver's side there was 126 pounds. I was like, oh my gosh. I didn't want to say anything in front of the owner, but you know, Carlos goes, we all good? And I was like, Carlos, the tires are way overinflated. They will pop 20 miles down the road. And he was like, we mean they're overinflated. And I showed him the TPMS. He's like, what's that? And I explained it to him. And so he started letting air out, letting air out, letting air out. And finally we got them both right. And the owner came over and he goes, everything okay over here? And I was like, yep, we're good. And Carlos looked at me and I looked at him and I'm like, anyway, so I'm all set. Tire pressure is good now. The weight distribution hitch is finally mounted correctly. And so I walked into the guy and I said, so what do I owe you? He said, I don't know, what do you want to pay me? I was like, don't do that. I have a couple of friends who are artisans and creators, and when they do that, it makes me crazy. I don't want to insult you by telling you what your work is worth. And he said, well, you've been here about 2 hours. And he said, I normally get for labor $120 an hour. And I was like, oh shit, you know, to myself. And he said, so how about you give me $60 and call it done? I was like, are you serious? He's like, yeah, happy to help. I don't want to see you going down the road like that. So anyway, there was that. Driving other than that has been great. The Tundra over the Tacoma has been the best decision I ever made. The Tundra has so much more power and has so much more truck. It barely knows the R-Pod is behind it. So that's been really nice. And I'm actually saving gas because the engine is not working nearly as hard to try and provide power to tow the trailer. Arrived at the state park where I am. It'll be almost 2 weeks. On Wednesday it will be 2 weeks. It's been beautiful here. I've posted pictures on Facebook. If you're not following me on Facebook, that group, I recommend it because that's where most of the really beautiful pictures end up. So it's just Wild at Heart on Facebook. It should come up, you know, and it's got like a mountain range and a heart with a pulse on it. I would love if you followed me there as well, if you're not already. Anyway, it's just been a really relaxing, beautiful, beautiful time here. Lots of exercise for the dogs and I. Lots of walks and hanging out in nature and wildlife. We're doing well. There's a few things that I've had to order since I've been on the road that I either didn't realize I was going to need, or already had them but forgot to pack them. Fortunately, all, low cost, low dollar items, and the campgrounds have been very gracious in receiving packages. So that's been great. Um, yeah, that's pretty much what's been going on. So 3 weeks in, I've made a lot of friends. On the road that I'm talking to. Some of them are full-time RVers and have been for years. Others are relatively new, like I am, and so we're learning from each other. Thus far, it's been a really good experience. And when negative things happen, I try my best not to let them bother me or get to me. Um, I miss my kids. I miss my kids. I'm sure my house misses me. My house has an amazing spirit, and I'm sure she misses me. And there's the off moments where I'm like, you know what? But most of the time, not. I am very happy and I'm very content. So from here, I will be going to Seashore, Delaware Seashore State Park, and that's only for 3 days because of bad planning on my part, and I didn't really want to spend the 3 days boondocking. So that'll be really nice because the campsites are right on the shore, so that'll be a completely different experience for the dogs and I. You can see Opal, the parakeet, up there behind me. He's become crazy. If I don't open his cage door so he's free-flighted, he literally sits there and yanks the door up and down, up and down, up and down. Ugh, drives me crazy. So I just leave his cage door open until it's time to go to bed at night. And Loki the rat, who I started telling friends was going to cross the Rainbow Bridge about 6 months ago, he was never supposed to be on this trip. Well, he hasn't crossed the Rainbow Bridge. He's actually hanging in there, and other than the fact that, he looks like an old rat, he's starting to lose hair, and he's just not the handsome boy that he once was anymore. He's doing pretty well, but he does have to spend his nights in the truck because rats are nocturnal, and he chews and gnaws on things and plays with toys, and I would never get any sleep. So the 5 of us are doing really well. Life in 360 square feet. Going well so far. When you see the video, please give it a thumbs up, like. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please do. I look forward to sharing so much more with you. And I have to end this video because Bella has a problem or problems that obviously a treat didn't cure. You guys stay safe, stay warm. I don't envy your winter that's coming. And I will update you again soon. Mwah!